Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about a power greater than all of us, a power that knows the roads we're afraid to walk, the answers we struggle to find, and the weight of the burdens we carry. I want to talk about leaving it to God. We live in a world that pressures us to have everything figured out, to know every answer, solve every problem, and control every outcome. But here's the truth. Life doesn't work like that. And you weren't designed to bear the weight of the world alone. See, when you leave it to God, it doesn't mean you give up on the fight. It means you stop fighting the wrong battles. Some things are beyond your strength, beyond your understanding. And that's where faith steps in. Faith isn't a backup plan, it's the foundation. It doesn't require evidence or certainty, it just needs trust. You might be in the middle of a storm right now, wondering if it'll ever pass. But don't you know that storms come to an end? Every dark sky breaks into dawn. When you let go of your fear and let God handle what's out of your control, something powerful happens. You find peace. The kind of peace the world can't offer because it doesn't come from the world. It comes from within. Now here's the challenge. God's timing isn't like ours. Oh, we think we need things now, answers now, opportunities now, but God's timing, it's always right. When you leave it to Him, you surrender the stress of trying to force what isn't ready. I've learned this. There are things we only understand after they're done. What you think is a delay might just be preparation. What feels like rejection might be redirection. So, trust the process, even if it doesn't make sense right now. And let me leave you with this. Your purpose isn't for you alone. It's part of a bigger picture. Let go of the urge to control every stroke on the canvas. Leave it to God and trust that the masterpiece is already underway. Thank you. God bless you all. Don't chase the illusion of a perfect life. It's a trap that convinces us that we have to achieve everything flawlessly, never stumble, never fall short, and never fail. But here's the truth. It's in those stumbles, in those failures, in the moments where nothing seems to make sense, that God does His best work in you. Perfection is not required for purpose. In fact, chasing perfection often blinds us to what truly matters. Purpose isn't found in a flawless life. It's found in the grit, the struggle, and the surrender to a plan greater than ours. Think about it. How many times have you believed that things must go your way for life to be okay? Maybe it's the perfect job, the perfect relationship, the perfect path you imagine for yourself. And what happens when those things don't work out? Do you let that destroy your faith? Or do you trust that even when your plan crumbles, God's plan stands firm? We are so quick to judge ourselves based on our failures. Society tells us that a mistake defines us, that a setback means we're not good enough, and that if we mess up, we're somehow less valuable. But none of that is true. The failures we experience, the moments that bring us to our knees, those aren't proof that we're off course. They're proof that God is refining us. Every misstep, every fall is a lesson, a way to grow closer to who you are meant to be. When you strive for perfection, you lose sight of something vital: humility. Perfection makes us believe it's all about us, our effort, our control, our ability to have it all together. But life, when lived fully, reminds us just how limited we are and just how infinite God is. When you let go of the illusion that you need to have everything figured out, that's when you allow Him to step in and lead the way. That's when you find purpose. Not in doing it all perfectly, but in showing up, being faithful, and letting God do what only. Imagine a person walking a long road, carrying an oversized load on their back. Every step feels heavier than the last. They stumble, but refuse to put the load down because they think they're the only ones who can carry it. They've bought into the lie that the journey is theirs alone, that they must be strong enough to handle it all. Doesn't that sound familiar? Aren't we all guilty of this? Trying to carry it all, fix it all, and get it all right. And what happens? We grow weary, we lose hope, but here's what we forget. We were never meant to do it alone. Leaving perfection behind means letting go of that load, piece by piece. It means acknowledging that your strength has a limit, but God's does not. It's trusting Him enough to stop striving for control and start walking in purpose instead. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Hello? Purpose is something you uncover over time. It's a journey, not a destination. And guess what? You won't always recognize the destination while you're on the road. You might think a failure is the end of the path when, in reality, it's just a detour guiding you to something better. How many times have you thought, this is it, this is what I was working for, only for things to fall apart? That moment isn't the end of your purpose. It's the beginning of a deeper calling. Your life has meaning, but it isn't about achieving perfection. It's about being a part of something bigger, a story being written with your successes, your struggles, your imperfections. When you can step back from the obsession with doing it all right and instead focus on letting God use every moment, every experience, you'll discover that purpose is woven into everything, even the things you thought had no value. What's most important is this: don't let the fear of imperfection keep you from moving forward. Too many people get stuck because they're afraid to mess up. They fear failing so much that they fail to even try. But if you trust God, you'll understand that your purpose isn't fragile. It won't break because you make a wrong turn. God doesn't revoke His plan for you just because you fell. If anything, He's waiting for you to give up the need to do it all perfectly and rely on Him instead. So, stop chasing perfection. Pursue purpose. That's where life is found. Not in the flawless moments, but in the messy, unpredictable, and graceful ones. Trust that every step you take, even the missteps, are part of a divine plan. Let go, let Him guide, and find freedom in knowing that purpose will always matter more than perfection. Faith is a powerful, invisible force that doesn't demand evidence to exist. It lives in our hearts, guiding us when logic fails, and carrying us when we're unsure of where to step next. But let's be honest, trusting without proof is easier said than done. We live in a world that demands guarantees. We want to see, hear, and touch before we believe. Yet real faith operates differently. It isn't about tangible proof or visible results. It's about the unseen, the uncertain, and the trust that even when we can't see the way forward, God is already ahead of us, preparing the path. We've all had moments when doubt creeps in, life gets hard, prayers seem to go unanswered, and struggles weigh us down. And in those moments, the absence of immediate solutions or visible signs can make us question whether God is even there. Why hasn't He shown me the way, we ask? Why doesn't He give me a sign? But faith doesn't need signs. Faith needs surrender. It's letting go of the need to know and choosing to believe, even when the world tells you not to. When you put your faith in God, you're not living a life of blindness. You're living a life of trust. It's about knowing that the one who created the universe is also mindful of you and your struggles. You may not see His hand, but that doesn't mean it isn't working. You may not hear His voice, but that doesn't mean He isn't speaking. Faith challenges us to release our grip on certainty, to embrace the unknown, and to walk with a confidence that comes not from what we see, but from what we believe. Think of it this way. Imagine standing on the edge of a bridge you've never seen before, one shrouded in fog. You can't see the other side and you're unsure if it's safe to cross, but you feel a nudge in your heart, an unexplainable pull to take the first step. Faith is taking that step, trusting that God has already ensured the bridge is solid, even if you can't see its foundation. That's the essence of leaving proof behind for trust. Faith doesn't mean you'll always have answers or that every question will be resolved. It means that you trust the process, even in the silence. Silence can be one of the hardest things to endure when you're desperate for direction or clarity. But remember, silence doesn't equal absence. Sometimes God's greatest work happens in the quiet, in the spaces where we learn to lean on Him completely. He knows what we need, and sometimes what we need most is patience and trust, not answers. People often mistake faith for passivity, as if trusting in God means sitting back and doing nothing. That's not faith, that's avoidance. True faith is active. It means making choices, taking steps, and doing the work you're called to do while trusting that the outcome isn't solely in your hands. Faith works in partnership with your efforts and God's plan. When you lean into that partnership, it becomes easier to release the burden of needing proof and embrace the peace of believing that things will unfold as they're meant to. But let's not ignore the reality of doubt. Doubt is human. It's a natural reaction when life feels uncertain. Having faith doesn't mean you won't experience doubt. It means you don't let doubt define you. Even in the darkest moments, when you're unsure if you'll make it through, faith reminds you that the story isn't over. It whispers, hold on, trust him, and reassures you that the chapters ahead are already written with purpose and love. Here's something else about faith. It's contagious. When others see you walking in trust, especially in the face of uncertainty, it inspires them to seek that kind of strength in their own lives. Faith has a ripple effect, not because it's loud or showy, but because it's steadfast. It has the power to light up the room, the power to shift the atmosphere, all because it refuses to depend on the temporary proof the world demands. So, don't wait for every piece of the puzzle to fit before you believe. Don't hold off on trusting until you can see the entire picture. Life doesn't work that way, and neither does faith. Trust in the process, the journey, and above all, the God who is faithful in ways we may never fully understand. Proof comes and goes, but faith holds steady. It connects us to a God who doesn't need us to figure it all out on our own, who doesn't require us to have all the answers. All he asks is that we trust him enough to let go of the need for guarantees and walk boldly into the unknown, hand in hand with the one who knows the way. Let your faith be bigger than your doubt, and you'll find that the walk of trust will carry you farther than any proof ever could. Too often we walk through life holding on to things we were never meant to carry. We carry the weight of regret, the burden of control, the need to be everything for everyone, and the fear of not measuring up. We hold tightly to these things, convinced that letting go is a sign of weakness. But what we don't realize is that clinging to these burdens only makes the road harder. Freedom doesn't come from carrying more, it comes from surrender. The hunger, and when you truly leave it to God, when you hand over what's too heavy for you to bear, you'll discover a peace and freedom unlike anything you've ever known. Think about all the things that weigh on you. Worries about the future, the desire for success, the fear of failure, or the pain of a past mistake. How many of those things have consumed your thoughts, stolen your joy, and kept you up at night? The truth is, no amount of worrying or overthinking will change the outcome. But here's the beautiful part. You don't have to do it all on your own. You were never meant to. God wants you to let go, to trust him with the things you can't control. And in doing so, you create space in your life for his grace to work. Surrendering doesn't mean giving up, it means giving over. It's recognizing that your strength has limits, but God's does not. It's realizing that the control you think you have is an illusion, and that the freedom you're searching for is found in trusting him. There is a kind of rest that comes when you finally stop trying to hold on to everything. When you say, God, this is too big for me, I'm giving it to you. And in that moment, you're not just letting go of the burden, you're stepping into a deeper relationship with him, one built on trust, faith, and a recognition of his power. Imagine a child trying to carry a bag that's twice their size. They strain, struggle, and stumble, refusing to let go, even though their father is standing right beside them, arms outstretched, ready to help. Isn't that how we often are? We insist on carrying our burdens, thinking it's our job to fix everything, even when God is right there, saying, give it to me. Let me carry that for you. But instead of handing it over, we hold on, convinced that surrender somehow makes us less capable or less responsible. In truth, surrender makes us stronger because it allows us to rely on the one who is infinitely stronger than we'll ever be. When you leave your burdens to God, you free yourself to focus on the things that truly matter. Instead of pouring your energy into things you can't control, you can invest it in growing, learning, and living fully. You become more present, more compassionate, more open to the opportunities God places in your path. That's the power of freedom through surrender. It transforms the way you live, shifting your perspective from one of scarcity to one of abundance, from anxiety to peace. But let's be honest, letting go isn't easy. It requires faith, and it requires trust. Trust that God's plan is better than yours. Trust that his timing is perfect even when it doesn't align with yours. And trust that he sees the bigger picture when all you can see is a fragment. This trust doesn't come overnight. It's built, little by little, as you choose to surrender your worries and watch how God takes care of them. Each time you let go and see his faithfulness, your trust grows. It's a process, but one worth embracing because it leads to freedom. When we refuse to let go, we miss out on the joy and peace God wants to give us. We get so caught up in trying to manage everything on our own that we overlook the blessings right in front of us. Letting go means shifting your focus. It's taking your eyes off the problem and placing them on the one who can solve it. It's releasing control and choosing to live with open hands, ready to receive what God has in store. And what he has in store is always better than anything we could plan for ourselves. Freedom doesn't mean life will be perfect or that challenges will disappear. It means you won't have to face them alone. It means knowing that whatever comes your way, God is there to carry you through. It's the peace of knowing that even when life feels chaotic, he is in control. And that peace isn't fleeting. It stays with you, anchoring you, because it doesn't come from your circumstances. It comes from the unchanging nature of who God is. When you let go and leave it to God, you're not giving up on your dreams or your responsibilities. You're simply choosing to release the unnecessary weight of trying to do it all alone. You're choosing to walk in faith, trusting that God is working all things together for your good. And in that surrender, you'll find the freedom you've been searching for, a freedom rooted in his grace, his strength, and his love. So stop holding on to what's weighing you down. Leave it to God and watch what he can do with a heart that's finally free. Patience is one of the hardest things to practice, especially when life feels urgent, uncertain, or out of control. We want things to happen now, solutions to appear immediately, and doors to open the moment we knock. But here's the truth. God's timing is not our timing, and his ways are not our ways. While we often operate on a schedule driven by our desires, God works according to his perfect plan. He knows what your hair looks like before you go to the dentist appointment. He knows what your lunch looks like before you lunch. Trusting in his timing requires faith, humility, and the willingness to let go of our timelines, understanding that what we think we need right now might not be what's best for us in the long run. We live in a world that glorifies speed and immediate results. Everything is fast, instant communication, same-day deliveries, quick fixes to complex problems. We've been conditioned to expect things to happen on our terms, without delay. So when life doesn't move as quickly as we want, it's easy to grow frustrated, impatient, and even disheartened. We start to wonder if God has forgotten about us, or if he's listening at all. But delays don't mean denial. What feels like waiting is often God's way of protecting, preparing, and positioning us for something greater than we could ever imagine. There's a reason why God's timing is often called perfect. It's not about when we think we're ready, it's about when we truly are. And let's be honest, we don't always know ourselves as well as we think we do. There are lessons we need to learn, growth we need to undergo, and faith we need to build before we're ready to step into the blessings God has prepared for us. It's like planting a seed. You don't expect it to bear fruit overnight. You nurture it, water it, and trust that in time it will grow into what it's meant to be. The same is true for us. What seems like a delay is often God's way of cultivating something within us, shaping us into the person we need to be to fully receive and appreciate his blessings. Have you ever received something before you were ready for it? Maybe it was an opportunity that overwhelmed you, or a relationship you weren't prepared to nurture. When we rush ahead of God, we often find ourselves in situations we're not equipped to handle. But when we wait on his timing, we receive his blessings at the exact moment when we can fully embrace them. It's not about waiting passively or doing nothing. It's about being patient while continuing to walk in faith, knowing that God is at work, even when we can't see it. Think about how many times in life a no or not yet eventually turned out to be a blessing in disguise. How many times were you grateful for a door that didn't open because later a better one did? In the moment, it's hard to understand why things aren't happening the way you want. But hindsight often reveals that God was redirecting you, protecting you, or giving you time to grow. Trusting in his timing means believing that he sees the whole picture, not just the piece you're currently holding. Waiting doesn't mean sitting still. It means preparing. It's an active process, one that requires prayer, reflection, and faithfulness in what you've been called to do right now. Sometimes we're so focused on the future we want that we overlook the purpose in the present. But every season, including the waiting, has its role in God's plan. While you're waiting, he might be working on something in your heart, opening doors you can't yet see, or orchestrating circumstances to align in ways only he can. There's also power in learning to rest during the wait. Rest isn't laziness, it's trust. When you can release the need to control every detail and let God work in his time, you free yourself from the anxiety and pressure of trying to force what isn't ready. Resting in his timing means you stop striving and start believing that his plans for you are good. It's about embracing the peace that comes with knowing he's in control, even when things feel uncertain. Patience in God's timing is ultimately about faith. Faith that his promises are true, faith that his plans for you are good, and faith that he's never early, never late, but always on time. The waiting might not always be easy, but it is always worth it. His timing allows things to align perfectly in ways we could never orchestrate on our own. It's not just about receiving what you're waiting for, it's about becoming the person you're meant to be when it arrives. So if you're in a season of waiting, don't lose heart. Trust that God is working behind the scenes in ways you can't yet see. Remind yourself that his timing is perfect, even if it doesn't align with yours. Keep walking in faith, keep preparing, and keep believing that what he has for you is better than anything you could plan for yourself. And when the time comes, when his blessings arrive, you'll see how everything, the waiting, the wondering, the trusting, was worth it. Because God's timing is not just about when things happen, it's about ensuring they happen at the exact moment when they'll have the greatest impact on your life.